Dimension is a particularly interesting part of Nectar 3. It's an effects module that consists of 3 separate modulation effects that add depth and movement to a track, and they can be used either subtly or as a special effect. Now, all 3 of them, and we switch between the chorus, flanger, and phaser by clicking here, all 3 of them basically work by duplicating the input signal, then modifying the duplicate by means of an LFO, and then mixing it back in with the original, but they work in slightly different ways. Chorus creates a doubling effect by delaying the duplicated signal that it creates and then modulating the pitch of it with an LFO. And that's kind of like we saw in the delay module where we modulated the pitch of the repeats. And now the flanger module is similar to the mechanics of the chorus, but it's a much shorter delay that it applies to the signal that it duplicates. And it's designed to create a sweeping comb filter effect by modulating the delay times of those really short delays. Now, phaser is a little different. It applies an all-pass filter to the duplicated signal, and the result of that is different notches in the frequency spectrum. So the position of those frequency notches are what's modulated with the LFO controls over here. So let's listen one at a time. Now, I'm going to dial it up so we can really hear what it's doing. First of all, let me start without it so we can hear the vocal dry. And I've got this on a bus because I want to affect some lead and harmony vocals at the same time.
We collide every time of the night and day.
So that's the phrase that I want to affect.
We collide every time of the night and day.
So if I go for a really slow rate, we'll hear a more gradual wobbling of the pitch.
We collide every time of the night and day. We collide every time of the night and day.
Versus faster.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Now not as deep.
We collide every time of the night and day.
And we can collapse the stereo imaging of the delays.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Now let's look at flanger. Same type of controls.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Deeper.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Sounds like a lot of phase cancellation.
We collide every time of the night and day. We collide every time of the night and day.
So a little bit of that would be interesting.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Collapse to mono.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Now let's look at the phaser where we can use the frequency knob here to determine the starting frequency of the filter that's used. And this is only available in the phaser module.
We collide every time of the night and day. We collide every time of the night and day. We collide every time of the night and day.
So you can hear how that shifts the frequency of the filtering.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Now what I find interesting is feeding a delay into it for a special effect. I'm going to call up a preset that I saved here, and it's got a delay before it and compressor after it. So let's just listen to this as is again.
We collide every time of the night and day.
And now with the delays, I'm using some very tight delays here. This is 36 milliseconds. This one's 68. And I'm just getting a denser, more doubled signal into the dimension module.
We collide every time of the night and day.
I don't want too much of it though. Now here on the dimension module, I'm using the phaser mode, and we can really get an interesting quality to the sweeping effect based on where this is set. But I've got a fairly fast rate and a fairly deep depth and a nice wide image and a lot of feedback feeding back in to the input signal.
We collide every time of the night and day.
And again, a fairly high mix here.
We collide every time.
I don't want to hear only that.
We collide every time of the night and day.
Now the problem is that these effects are reducing the volume a bit, so I've placed this compressor after it to compensate. So here it is without these two.
We collide every time.
And with these two.
We collide.
So it's a bit quieter now with this.
We collide every time of the night and day.
So that's the effect the way I want it, but the thing is I only want it on this phrase. So as I did in one of the recent videos, I'm going to automate the bypass on-off for all three of these, delay, dimension, and compressor. And I've already got that set up here. And if we look in the menu of automation parameters, we'll see that under Nectar we have a bypass for each of the modules. And there's the dimension bypass, there's the delay bypass. And here are the parameters. And here's the automation. This is simple bypass automation for the compression module, delay, and then the dimension module. So let's just hide that for a moment and listen from the phrase before, and we can hear the effect coming in and out for that one phrase. And let me just remember to enable the automation here. So we'll listen and you'll see these three bypass buttons going off and on.
Taking pride in all the cuts we give away firsthand. We collide every time of the night and day.
And then back off.
But we are blind.
And in context.
Taking pride in all the cuts we give away firsthand. We collide every time of the night and day. But we are blind to the lie and never take a step.
So I have that interesting effect automated for that one spot. Now one thing I might change is just maybe lower the compression makeup gain a bit. It jumped out a little bit, but that's a small tweak. So that's the dimension module, and we'll continue with more in the next video.